The sea is endless. It whispers with calm waves, then roars with storms no one can command. For ages, people have looked to the horizon, where sky meets water, searching for answers. They feared the tides, yet trusted them, for the sea could both give life and take it away. In every ripple, there was mystery. In every crashing wave, the voice of something greater. The ancients believed a mighty god watched from beneath the surface, guarding his realm. His name was Poseidon, lord of the ocean, master of tides, storms, and the restless deep. With his trident, he stirred the seas, bringing calm or chaos, silence or thunderous roar. He was not cruel, but powerful, reflecting the ocean's truth, beauty paired with danger. Travelers and sailors prayed to him, casting offerings into the waves for safe passage. They believed his mood shaped the journey, gentle winds or endless tempests. The ocean was never just water. It was a living force, vast, eternal, always watching. Tonight, we step into that myth, to listen to the whispers of the sea and meet Poseidon. A story not of war or conquest, but of awe, reverence, and the endless rhythm of tides. So let the waves guide us now, into the heart of legend, where the ocean never sleeps. In the beginning, the world was young, and the skies were filled with whispers of creation. The earth trembled with new life. Mountains rose, rivers carved valleys, and oceans spread wide. Among the ancient powers were the Titans, children of the earth and sky, immense and eternal. They ruled before time was measured, before the rhythm of days and nights became familiar. But from their fall came the rise of new gods, the Olympians, destined to shape human belief. Poseidon was among them, born into struggle, born to claim the restless waters as his own. He was brother to Zeus, who ruled the skies, and Hades, who guarded the silent underworld. Together, they inherited the vastness of the cosmos, each a keeper of a sacred domain. Poseidon's domain was the sea, a kingdom without walls, boundless, infinite, always moving. The sea was his crown, the waves his subjects, the tides his eternal heartbeat. He was not born gentle, but neither was he cruel. He was the balance of power and grace. The ancients said his voice was the rumble of waves against cliffs, deep and commanding. They told stories of his eyes, bright as polished stone, shining with the reflection of oceans. His strength was tied not to conquest, but to the rhythm of natural forces that never rest. The sea does not sleep, nor did Poseidon, always watchful, always stirring the deep waters. Even as a child among gods, he was drawn to the ocean's horizon, endless and untamed. Where Zeus looked upward to thunder, Poseidon looked outward to tides and shifting currents. The world was divided, yet connected, and his task was to master the water's unbroken song. His trident, given by the Cyclopes, was a symbol of dominion and an instrument of harmony. With it, he could raise islands from the depths, shape coastlines, or summon storms at sea. But his gift was more than power. It was understanding, the language of the ocean itself. He listened to the tides as others listened to voices, and the sea answered with devotion. To mortals, Poseidon was both protector and challenger, a god whose presence they revered. Fishermen looked to him for calm waters, while sailors feared the sudden fury of storms. They believed every wave carried his breath, every current was guided by his unseen hand. The myths of his birth tell not of battles, but of emergence, of destiny tied to the sea. Unlike gods of fire or war, Poseidon did not claim his throne with violence. He claimed it through balance, by becoming the very spirit of the ocean's eternal dance. His story is one of belonging, of a god who is inseparable from the world he rules. The sea was vast before him, but in his presence it gained a voice, a soul, a guardian. Poseidon became the embodiment of mystery, both gentle tide and crashing storm. Children of Greece grew up hearing his name, spoken in awe around firelit nights. Sailors whispered it at dawn, offering prayers before setting sail into the unknown. His birth was more than the arrival of a god. It was the awakening of the ocean's will. For as long as waves touch the shore, Poseidon's story is not just myth, but memory. And so, the tale of his beginning is not an end, but the opening of a tide that never fades. Far below the surface of the sea, hidden from mortal eyes, lies a kingdom of endless wonder. It is not built of stone or wood, but of coral, pearls, and shimmering shells of every hue. The walls glisten with light that filters through the water, bending into shades of green and blue. Here stands the palace of Poseidon, lord of the ocean, a realm alive with beauty and song. The gates are formed from spirals of giant shells, polished by currents and guarded by dolphins. Beyond them stretch vast halls, where pillars of coral rise like trees in a living forest. Schools of fish shimmer like living lanterns, weaving patterns across the watery ceilings. Pearls as large as a hand rest in alcoves, glowing softly as though kissed by moonlight. The sound is never silence, but the eternal heartbeat of the sea, calm yet commanding. Whales pass outside the walls, their songs echoing through the chambers as sacred hymns. Seahorses drift through gardens of kelp, where currents weave gentle dances of shadow and light. The palace is alive, not with fire, but with motion, a rhythm shaped by tides and time. Every current carries a story, every ripple whispers secrets older than any human tongue. Poseidon's throne rests at the center, carved from coral older than mountains themselves. It is adorned with shells and inlaid with gems formed from the ocean's hidden depths. He sits there not as a tyrant, but as guardian, listening to the voice of the sea. Around him, sea nymphs sing, their voices blending with the melody of flowing waters. Creatures great and small come before him, not in fear, but in trust of his guidance. His palace is not a fortress, but a sanctuary, where all the sea finds balance and order. Mortals could only imagine such a place, and poets dreamed of its brilliance in their verses. They said the walls shone brighter than marble, though no hand of man ever touched them. Legends told of sailors who claimed to glimpse towers rising beneath clear waters. They spoke of golden light dancing in the deep, as though the sea itself had windows. Whether truth or vision, the belief remained. A palace waits beneath the endless tides. Here Poseidon walks the halls, his presence felt in every swirl of current and swell of tide. He does not need torches or flame, for the sea provides its own light, eternal and pure. Each chamber opens into another, flowing like rivers that never cease to move forward. No door remains closed, for the sea is freedom, and his home reflects that truth. In his realm, time feels different, as though centuries drift by like grains of sand. The sea remembers all things, holding history in its depths, and Poseidon hears it all. The laughter of children on distant shores, the songs of sailors, the silence of lost ships. Every echo reaches him, woven into the fabric of the palace, eternal and unbroken. This is no kingdom of war, but of harmony, a reflection of the ocean's living spirit. The realm beneath the waves is both vast and intimate, endless yet belonging to one heart. It is Poseidon's gift, his presence made visible, his bond with the sea unshakable. To imagine the palace is to glimpse eternity, for the ocean never ends, and neither does he. The realm beneath the waves remains unseen, but always felt whenever the sea calls. And though mortals cannot enter, they carry the dream of it every time they face the horizon. For beyond the surf and the storm lies a kingdom eternal, the home of Poseidon himself. In the myths of old, every god bore a symbol, a sign of their dominion and their sacred strength. For Poseidon, the ocean's master, that symbol was the trident, a weapon forged in ancient fire. It was no ordinary spear, but a creation of the Cyclopes, giants with hands skilled in divine craft. Each prong gleamed with a light like the sun reflected upon water, sharp yet graceful to behold. The trident was more than a tool of power. It was the bond between Poseidon and the seas. When he held it aloft, the tides listened, the currents shifted. The very ocean obeyed his hand. It was said a single strike could stir the depths, summoning waves that reached toward the sky. But with equal ease, he could calm a raging storm, smoothing the waters into glass-like peace. This dual gift reflected the truth of the sea. Creation and destruction bound as one. The trident was his voice, his song, his declaration that the ocean was alive and eternal. Legends tell of him touching the seabed, raising islands from the deep as though sculpting clay. Mountains rose from beneath the waves, coastlines stretched, and new lands greeted the horizon. Sailors believed that when an island appeared overnight, it was Poseidon's trident at work. The myths carried awe, not fear, for his power was a reminder of the sea's creative spirit. The trident was also harmony, a balance of three prongs, symbol of unity and natural order. One prong for the seas, one for the earth's waters, one for the rivers that kissed the land. Together, they represented the circle of life flowing endlessly from shore to sky. Priests of ancient temples carved the trident into stone, marking it as a sacred emblem. Fishermen etched it onto their boats, trusting Poseidon to guide them through dark waters. To hold its image was to hold hope, to believe the sea could be both generous and kind. Yet the myths also spoke of its warning, for to disrespect the ocean was to tempt its might. The trident was not wrath, but reminder that balance must be honored and nature revered. In some tales, Poseidon touched the ground with its tip, and springs of water burst forth. Clear rivers flowed where once there was none, gifts of life offered to the thirsty earth. His trident carried not just storm, but blessing, the gentle side of the ocean's song. Mortals saw in it the mystery of duality, the way calm and chaos live side by side. Each prong seemed to shimmer with meaning, a sign of the ocean's endless transformations. The poets of Greece called it the key of tides, the heart of Poseidon's eternal dominion. For without it, the sea might wander, restless and wild, untamed by divine presence. But in his hands, it became harmony, a bridge between gods, mortals, and the natural world. Children grew up hearing stories of the trident, imagining its glow in the ocean's depths. They dreamed of its strength, yet also its grace, a balance they longed to understand. The trident was not merely a weapon, but a truth carved in myth, a lesson across ages, that the sea is never only rage, never only calm, but both, held in fragile balance. And in Poseidon's grasp, the trident shone as the eternal reminder of that sacred truth. Its power was not domination, but the voice of the ocean itself, calling, guiding, watching. Thus, the trident remains a symbol that endures, shining through waves and through memory. Wherever the sea moves, its echo lingers, telling of Poseidon, lord of waters and tides. And so, the story of his trident is the story of the ocean, vast, eternal, and alive. The sea has always been a mirror of two faces, one of calm beauty and one of restless fury. To the fisherman at dawn, the ocean is gentle, carrying boats across glassy, silver waters. It offers food, passage, and hope, a friend to those who honor its rhythm and silence. To the sailor at night, the same waters may rise, their calm broken by roaring waves. Storms appear without warning, and the sea becomes vast, endless, and impossible to tame. This is the dual nature of the ocean, a balance that reflects Poseidon's eternal presence. He is not only the god of tempests, but also the guardian of calm harbors and safe shores. The ancients saw in him the truth of the sea, both a cradle of life and a source of awe. When children played by the coast, they heard laughter in the waves, light and inviting. When ships vanished in storms, people whispered his name, knowing the sea must be obeyed. The ocean could bless a voyage with steady winds, or delay it with endless, drifting stillness. Its moods were never random. They were the breathing of a living, timeless spirit. Poseidon embodied this truth, his character tied to the shifting nature of the tides. In his calm, he was generous, guiding sailors safely home to the embrace of their families. In his unrest, he was teacher, reminding humankind of humility before the natural world. The poets of Greece spoke of the ocean as a hymn, sometimes soft, sometimes thunderous. They believed Poseidon wrote this music, blending harmony and chaos into one song. To understand him was not to fear him, but to accept the sea as both gentle and fierce. For the ocean cannot be divided. It is both stillness and storm, gift and challenge. Legends tell of times when Poseidon walked the shore, watching waves curl at his feet. With a gesture, he could summon calm breezes, soothing the restless heart of the sea. Yet with another, he could release the storm, not out of cruelty, but as a warning. The warning was clear. To live with the sea, one must respect its dual spirit. This truth guided sailors, farmers, and poets, shaping how they saw their world. The ocean watered the earth, carried trade, and inspired tales that lasted generations. But it also tested courage, breaking the pride of those who thought it could be mastered. Poseidon's dual nature was not contradiction, but balance, like the tides themselves. One wave rises, another falls. One day brings calm, another brings unrest. In this endless cycle lies the secret of the sea's power and its eternal beauty. To mortals, it was mystery. To Poseidon, it was the very essence of his being. Even now, when we watch waves crash or listen to the hush of the tide, we feel it. The two faces of the ocean still speak, ancient and unchanged, as old as the world. It is the same duality that shaped myths, carved coastlines, and carried ships across seas. The ancients knew this well, and so they offered prayers for calm, but accepted the storm. They did not see wrath alone, but a God reminding them of their place in creation. For the ocean gives, and the ocean takes, yet always returns to its rhythm of tides. And so, in every whisper of water and every roar of waves, Poseidon's dual spirit lives. He is the silence of a calm horizon and the thunder of a rising storm, both eternal. The sea is never only one thing, and neither is he, for both are bound by balance. Thus, the ocean's dual nature is not a curse, but a gift, a reminder of life's truth, that beauty is found in harmony and strength in respecting forces beyond our own. The ancients often spoke of Poseidon's wrath, but what did they truly mean by such words? To them, wrath was not cruelty nor blind rage, but the sea's natural response to imbalance. when mortals forgot respect. The ocean reminded them that it was alive, vast, and untamed. A sudden storm was not anger alone, but the voice of nature asking to be remembered. Poseidon's wrath was awe, not vengeance, a display of the sea's true and shifting power. Fishermen knew this well, and so they prayed before sailing, offering tokens to the waves. They placed wreaths of flowers or poured wine into the waters, seeking harmony with the sea. Their gifts were not bribes, but symbols of gratitude, acknowledgments of dependence. For they knew that to cross the ocean was to enter a realm not their own, but his. Sailors who ignored tradition often returned with tales of sudden winds and broken masts. They spoke of towering waves that appeared from calm horizons, vanishing just as quickly. To them, such events were Poseidon's reminder, not punishment, but awakening of humility. The ancients believed nature spoke through gods, and Poseidon's language was the tide. It was the rush of waves against cliffs, the rise of storms, the sudden stillness of calm. Every shift carried meaning, a lesson woven into the ocean's eternal and endless song. To call it wrath was to give shape to mystery, to understand through stories and symbols. For the sea could never be fully known, but it could be honored and deeply respected. Poseidon's so-called fury was a mirror of human pride, broken against the vast horizon. Those who listened carefully discovered wisdom in the very chaos they feared. The storm taught patience, the calm taught gratitude, and both belonged to his will. In temples by the coast, priests told stories of his nature, guiding people to see truth. They reminded them that wrath is not cruelty, but correction, a balance restored by force. The ocean did not hate, it did not seek revenge, it only demanded respect for its order. Poseidon's image was painted with strength, but never with malice or needless cruelty. He was guardian of the seas, not tormentor, and his actions were harmony in motion. When ships returned safely, people sang hymns of thanks, knowing the god had watched. When voyages failed, they did not curse him, but reflected on lessons hidden in loss. To the Greeks, Poseidon's wrath was part of life, as natural as rain or the rising sun. It was the reminder that humanity is small, yet still part of the grand order of creation. Modern ears may hear the word wrath and think only of destruction or unbridled rage. But the ancients saw more, a rhythm of warning, a god showing balance through power. In truth, wrath was not anger, but attention, the ocean calling out to wandering hearts. It was the sea asking, "Do you remember who I am? Do you honor what I give?" It was the ocean's breath, filling sails with wind and testing them with sudden gusts. Every storm was a story, every wave a verse, every calm an unspoken promise of return. Poseidon's nature was never to destroy, but to keep the eternal cycle of sea and land. His so-called wrath was a guide, turning fear into wisdom, chaos into understanding. For in the end, the ocean is not cruel, it simply exists, vast, alive, and eternal. And Poseidon, its keeper, reflects that truth, a god whose wrath is nature's voice. So the myths endure, teaching us to see storms not as rage, but as lessons of balance. The wrath misunderstood becomes wisdom revealed, carried forever in the song of tides. The tides have always been storytellers, moving in and out with a rhythm older than time itself. Each rise and fall is a message, a whisper from Poseidon to the shore and to humankind. When the sea retreats, it is as if he draws breath, pausing before the next great exhale. When the tide returns, it brings gifts, shells, driftwood, and the song of distant waters. Sailors and villagers once gathered at the beach, watching this eternal pattern in silence. They believed the tides carried answers, subtle signs from the god of the ocean's depths. At night, under the moon, the waters glowed softly, breathing in harmony with the stars. The ancients saw this glow as Poseidon's watchful eye, guiding those who dared to sail. His trident was said to command not only waves, but also the pull of the tides themselves. Each motion was deliberate, as if the god painted the shore anew with every passing hour. Children playing by the coast asked their elders why the sea came and went without rest. The elders smiled and said, "It is Poseidon's way of speaking, though softly, never in haste." For the ocean does not shout its wisdom. It murmurs, it hums, it sings through its breath. The tides taught patience, reminding mortals that time is circular, not a straight line. A voyage delayed by low tide was not punishment, but protection, a pause for reflection. Fishermen waited with reverence, knowing the return of waters meant Poseidon's blessing. The hush of the tide was as sacred as prayer, an invisible bond between sea and soul. Some myths told of lovers separated by land, meeting through the touch of the rising tide. Others spoke of sailors guided home, following the pulse of water back to their shores. The ocean, through Poseidon, was a guide, always present, always whispering through rhythm. Every grain of sand shifted by tide was a reminder of his hand shaping the earth. Even mighty cliffs were humbled by waves, carved not by violence, but persistence of time. The Greeks saw wisdom here. True, power does not rush. It moves steady, sure, eternal. To listen to the tide was to hear a god's song, sung not in words, but in ceaseless motion. Priests in coastal temples timed rituals to the ebb and flow, believing it holy alignment. Offerings were placed on the shore, carried away by water as if received by the god. This connection bound mortals to the sea, reminding them they were guests, not owners. The tide's rhythm was also the rhythm of life, of breath, of beginnings and endings. Poseidon's voice was not only in storms, but in these gentle, quiet exchanges each day. His whispers asked only that people notice, respect, and walk humbly beside the sea. Modern eyes may see only water, yet even now, the rhythm remains unchanged and pure. It is the same tide that touched ancient feet, the same voice that guided lost sailors. Standing by the shore, one still feels it, the steady breath of something vast and timeless. The waves draw back, then return, like the rise and fall of a heartbeat in the world's chest. Each tide is a reminder that endings are never final. They are beginnings in disguise. Poseidon's whispers endure, teaching patience, humility, and wonder at life's cycle. The ocean still speaks, and if we listen closely, we may hear the wisdom in its tides. Beneath the rolling waves lies a world hidden, vast and alive, a kingdom under Poseidon's care. The ancients believed this realm was guarded by creatures born of myth and mystery. These guardians were not monsters, but symbols, each carrying the sea's eternal wisdom. Some spoke of hippocamps, half horse, half fish, galloping through tides with silver manes. They were Poseidon's steeds, carrying him across the endless waters with unmatched grace. Others told of dolphins, sacred to the god, protectors of sailors lost at sea. When storms struck, dolphins appeared, guiding vessels back toward safe harbors. To the Greeks, their presence was proof of Poseidon's kindness, hidden within the waves. Legends also whispered of Nereids, gentle sea nymphs dancing in the surf of the coast. They sang songs like the tide, soothing the weary, offering comfort to those in despair. Fishermen believed hearing their voices was a blessing, a sign of smooth waters ahead. In deeper waters dwelled tritons, beings with conch shells that echoed across the sea. With a single note, they could calm storms or summon winds, carrying Poseidon's will. Their voices were the ocean's trumpet, both warning and welcome, never to be ignored. The guardians of the deep reflected the balance of Poseidon's realm, harmony in motion. They were not feared, but revered, embodiments of the mysteries that swam beyond sight. Each story carried a truth. The ocean is not empty. It is alive, filled with unseen allies. To respect the sea was to respect its guardians, for they served both God and nature. The ancients told children to honor dolphins, to thank the waves, to greet the tide. For in doing so, they honored Poseidon himself, keeper of life beneath the surface. Even now, we know dolphins save sailors, guiding them away from danger with strange wisdom. Science calls it instinct, but the old tales still whisper, it is Poseidon's hand at work. The guardians endure in memory, reminders that the ocean watches, protects, and teaches. Every cresting wave carries their presence. Every ripple sings their silent hymn. The Greeks did not invent these myths by chance. They arose from awe of the living sea. For who could stand by the shore, see its life, and not sense spirits moving within it? To them, the sea was sacred, a temple without walls, its guardians priests of the tide. Each creature had purpose. Each story taught reverence for the vast waters beyond. When dolphins leapt at dawn, it was a dance of joy, a greeting from Poseidon himself. When strange songs echoed from the deep, sailors listened, hearts steady with trust. The guardians were not just protectors, they were guides, reminders of the god's presence. Their forms, whether horse, nymph, or dolphin, were shapes of the ocean's eternal song. And Poseidon, standing above them, was conductor of this grand and boundless symphony. Through them, mortals learned that the sea was never empty, but a living, breathing realm. The guardians of the deep were bridges, connecting humankind with the mysteries below. They ensured mortals never forgot. The ocean was vast, but it was also home. And in its home, every life, seen or unseen, belonged to Poseidon's eternal care. So even now, when we hear dolphins call or watch waves dance, we remember the myths. We recall the guardians, not as fantasy, but as echoes of a truth older than memory. The sea lives, it watches, it protects, and through it, Poseidon's guardians still endure. Along the rocky coasts of Greece, temples once rose where land met the eternal sea. These temples were not grand like mountain sanctuaries, but they carried their own majesty. Columns stood against the salt wind, weathered by waves and prayers whispered across time. Here mortals honored Poseidon, the god who ruled the depths and the restless horizon. Pilgrims arrived with offerings, not of gold alone, but of grain, wine, and olive oil. Fishermen brought their first catch. Sailors carried tokens from distant lands, humble yet sincere. Every gift was a bridge, a way to connect mortal hands with the immortal sea. Priests lit fires at dawn, their smoke curling into the sky as hymns rose with the tide. The sound of waves was their choir, blending with chants that echoed through stone halls. People knelt, not in fear, but in reverence, knowing the ocean's dual face of calm and storm. They prayed for safe voyages, for bountiful waters, for the balance of wind and tide. The temples were more than stone, they were thresholds, where earth and ocean embraced. At Saunion, a great temple stood, perched high upon a cliff, watching over endless blue. Sailors saw its shining marble from afar, a beacon of hope after months at sea. They believed Poseidon's gaze was fixed there, guarding the waters and guiding their return. Stories tell of sacrifices made, not of cruelty, but of gratitude and solemn devotion. Animals, bread, or wine were offered, symbols of harmony between sea and shore. The rituals followed the rhythm of tides, for Poseidon's language was always the sea. When waves struck hard below, priests spoke of his presence, listening, near and eternal. When waters stilled, they called it blessing, his hand resting gently on the world. The temples also served as gathering places, where communities wove their lives around the sea. Fishermen shared tales of near disasters, always ending with thanks to the god of waters. Mothers prayed for sons who sailed into the unknown, trusting Poseidon's watchful eye. Children listened wide-eyed, learning respect for the waves before they touched a boat. The temples kept these lessons alive, carved into stone, spoken in prayer, lived in daily toil. Travelers carried stories of these shrines, spreading Poseidon's name beyond Greece's shores. Each temple became a lighthouse of faith, guiding not only ships, but human hearts. In every chant and offering, there was recognition. The sea was not ours, but his. Modern ruins still stand, their columns broken, their altars silent, yet they whisper. They whisper of a time when gods and mortals walked side by side, bound by reverence. Standing there, one still hears the wind echo like hymns, the waves like eternal prayers. The stones may crumble, but the spirit of devotion remains, alive in the sea itself. For every temple was less about marble than about memory, less about walls than about wonder. They were anchors of faith, holding people steady amid the shifting tides of life. Poseidon's temples by the shore taught a simple truth. To live with the sea is sacred. And even today, when sailors pass those ancient cliffs, they bow in silent respect. For though the priests are gone and the altars cold, the god of the sea still reigns. His presence lives in the tides, his voice in the waves, his temples in the memory of humankind. In ancient times, when answers were hidden, mortals turned to oracles for guidance and light. The sea, vast and unpredictable, often demanded questions only Poseidon himself could answer. At sacred shrines near water, oracles listened, their minds open to divine whispers from beyond. They sat in silence, breathing incense and salt air, waiting for visions to arrive. Some said they heard waves speaking, others said dreams revealed Poseidon's will in fragments. To the people, every word mattered, for life by the sea was never certain. Sailors came kneeling, asking if storms would rise or journeys would end in calm. Farmers asked if rains would fall, if the ocean's hand would bless their harvest. The Far's oracle's voice trembled, carrying riddles that echoed like waves against stony cliffs. Never direct, never plain, but always layered, like the shifting tides of the deep. Beware the calm before the storm, one oracle warned, eyes fixed on the horizon. Her words guided a fleet to delay its voyage, sparing lives from a hidden tempest. Another spoke of a gift from the sea, both curse and blessing in one. Later, a fisherman discovered a pearl so vast, it brought him wealth and burden. The oracles did not claim wisdom as their own, but as borrowed from the god. Their role was to bridge silence, to let Poseidon's vastness be heard by mortal hearts. Many feared the ambiguity, yet trusted it more than certainty, for the sea was never simple. Stories grew of oracles dreaming of tridents, of horses rising from the tide at night. Such visions were woven into myth, blending truth, faith, and wonder into sacred memory. Kings, too, sought the oracles, for empires relied on safe passage and open seas. They brought offerings, gold, and incense, But the oracles cared little for riches. They only spoke what they received, no matter how unsettling, no matter who asked. Some prophecies were ignored, dismissed as riddles, until the waves proved them true. A king once laughed at a warning of walls drowned not by sea but pride. His city fell not by water, but by hubris, for the oracle's words had many layers. Thus, Poseidon's voice through oracles was never to be taken lightly or quickly. Each phrase carried weight. Each silence carried more. For the sea spoke in mysteries. Even today, we remember their whispers, though the shrines lie broken and the voice is gone. The legacy of oracles remains in every caution given before a voyage, every warning told. They taught mortals to listen, not only to waves, but to silence between them. Their gift was not prediction alone, but awareness, humility before the vast unknown. For to hear Poseidon was not to control the sea, but to respect its depth. The oracles reminded all who asked, the ocean is not enemy, nor friend, but eternal. Its will cannot be bent, only honored, and through honor, harmony might be found. So when you hear the sea tonight, in its restless whispers or gentle calm, listen. Perhaps what you hear is no mere sound, but the faint echo of oracles long gone. Perhaps the ocean still speaks, if we dare to quiet ourselves enough to hear. For the sea's voice has always been there, eternal, patient, waiting to be remembered. Beneath the shimmering surface of the sea, legends said cities once thrived, hidden from mortal sight. These were not ruins of stone, but realms shaped by Poseidon's will, alive with magic and wonder. Fishermen whispered of lights glowing beneath waves, as if lanterns burned deep within the ocean. Sailors spoke of hearing faint music at night, drifting upward like echoes from another world. These tales told of kingdoms where coral formed palaces and pearls gleamed brighter than stars. Seahorses drew chariots of silver, while dolphins carried messages from realm to realm in peace. It was said mortals who glimpsed these places returned forever changed, their eyes holding mystery. One story spoke of a youth lost at sea, swept away during a sudden storm at dusk. He was carried below, where a city of glass and water stretched as far as he could see. Merfolk welcomed him, speaking of Poseidon as their eternal king and guardian of all seas. They offered him food of the deep, fruits that shone like jewels, and wine of kelp. He lived among them for what felt like months, yet only a day had passed above. When he returned, he could not describe it fully, only stammer of beauty beyond words. Villagers doubted him, but his eyes held depths that silenced even the most skeptical voice. Other legends told of gates beneath the waves, guarded by creatures with eyes like fire. Not monsters, but guardians, keeping balance between the mortal world and the divine realm. To cross without Poseidon's blessing meant currents would carry you astray, never to return. Yet with devotion, sailors believed one might glimpse the sacred halls of the deep. It was not fear alone that shaped these tales, but wonder, awe, and longing for mystery. The sea was vast, and mortals needed stories to make sense of its endless expanse. These legends bound them to Poseidon, painting him not only as ruler, but as creator. He was seen as architect of beauty, designer of worlds where mortals could never dwell. And yet, glimpses were given, enough to remind humanity of what lay beyond their reach. The waves became a veil, thin enough for hope, thick enough to keep secrets. Some believed the drowned cities were not lost, but waiting, hidden until the right moment. Perhaps one day Poseidon would raise them, showing humanity a world they had forgotten. Until then, The ocean's surface shimmered like a curtain, concealing untold wonders below. Every ripple, every sparkle of moonlight was a reminder of mysteries too deep to hold. The legends beneath the waves were less about truth than about the longing to believe. To believe that the sea was not empty, but alive, filled with stories yet untold. These stories comforted sailors at night, giving meaning to the endless stretch of horizon. They reminded mortals that Poseidon's realm was vast, eternal, and forever beyond their control. Even now, when we stare at the ocean, we feel that same pull of mystery. We wonder what lies beneath, what stories the water guards, what dreams it refuses to release. And in that wonder, Poseidon's presence lingers, as strong as the tide, as deep as the abyss. For the sea holds legends not to deceive, but to remind us of the sacred unknown. And perhaps, when the waves are calm, you too might hear music drifting from below. Not fantasy, not illusion, but the voice of the ocean itself, whispering its timeless stories. The story of Poseidon is not one of endings, for the sea itself knows no end at all. It is a cycle, a rhythm, forever flowing, forever reminding mortals of their place in creation. We began with waves crashing on stone, with temples rising where sea and land touched. We traveled through myths and oracles, through whispers, warnings, and cities beneath the waves. Each tale was more than legend. It was a reflection of humanity's bond with the ocean. The Greeks saw Poseidon not only as ruler, but as mirror of the sea's vast soul. He was tempest and calm, destruction and renewal, danger and blessing woven into one. To live with the sea was to live with him, in awe, in respect, in humility. Generations carried his name in prayers, their voices blending with the eternal song of tides. And though centuries have passed, and his temples lie in ruin, his presence has not faded. Stand at the shore today, and you will feel the same ancient truth in the wind. The horizon stretches endless, whispering the same mysteries once heard by sailors long ago. The waves still rise and fall, steady as breath, reminding us of power beyond our own. We build ships stronger, we map the oceans deeper, yet the sea remains unconquered. Poseidon's spirit lingers not in statues or ruins, but in the living waters themselves. Every storm, every calm sunrise at sea, carries the mark of the god of tides. And within us too, for we are born of water, our veins echo the ocean's flow. Perhaps that is why we return again and again to the shore, to listen. We stand in silence, hearts stilled, waiting to feel what the ancients once felt. A presence beyond sight, a force beyond measure, a god whose realm is without end. The myths remind us not of power alone, but of balance, reverence, and fragile respect. For the ocean gives and it takes, as Poseidon always did, with purpose, never malice. It is up to mortals to remember that harmony, to walk gently where sea meets land, to know the ocean is not ours to own, but ours to honor, as the Greeks once did. And so the story continues, carried by waves, told by wind, remembered by every shore. The ocean's wrath was never just wrath. It was warning, beauty, and eternal connection. Poseidon's trident still strikes, not in fury, but in rhythm with the heartbeat of the sea. And if you listen, truly listen, you may hear his voice in the crash of waves, a voice not lost, but eternal, echoing through time, as close as the tide at your feet. The story of Poseidon is the story of us, of humanity learning to live with mystery. It is the reminder that beyond control, beyond pride, there lies something greater than ourselves, something endless, sacred, and alive, waiting in every ripple, every storm, every calm horizon. So when you leave this story, do not leave it behind. For the sea carries it still. Carry it with you, as the sailors once did, as the oracles once spoke, as temples once stood. Carry it as memory, as lesson, as wonder, into every moment you walk beside the sea. And know with each step that Poseidon watches still, through the eternal, unbroken tide,